But that's not how it happened. He built the machine that changed the world. But Apple did not become an empire because of invention alone. It became an empire because someone knew how to take control. There are stories the world celebrates, and there are stories the world buries. This one was buried on purpose. California, 1976. In a garage in Los Altos, a circuit board sits on a wooden workbench under a single bare bulb. No investors, no press conference, no name above the door. Just a soldering iron, a man in a plaid shirt, and an idea nobody wanted. His name was Steve Wozniak, and this is the story of how he built the most valuable company in human history and walked away with almost nothing. Wozniak was 25 years old when he finished the Apple I. He didn't build it to get rich. He built it because the problem fascinated him, because he wanted to see if it could be done. He offered it to Hewlett-Packard first, his employer, the company he trusted. 5 times he walked through their doors. 5 times they looked at the circuit board, looked at the man holding it, and said no. So he took it somewhere else. His friend Steve Jobs saw what HP missed. Not the machine, the opportunity. Jobs convinced Wozniak to turn the Apple I into a product. A local computer store called the Byte Shop agreed to buy 50 units, cash on delivery, 30 days to build them, by hand, in a garage, just the 2 of them. They did it. But before Apple, there was Atari, and this is where the story starts to turn dark. Jobs had landed a contract to design a video game called Breakout. The deal paid $5,000. Jobs told Wozniak the fee was $700. They split it, $350 each. Jobs had received $5,000. Wozniak didn't find out for years. And you know what he said about it? He said it didn't matter. Because for Wozniak, it genuinely didn't.
He built the machine, but he never held the keys.
The Apple II launched in 1977. Wozniak designed it almost entirely alone. The hardware, the operating system, the floppy disk controller that the rest of the industry spent the next 5 years trying to reverse engineer. It was a machine so far ahead of its time that Apple sold it for 16 years straight. Apple grew fast. Wozniak's shares were worth millions on paper. He looked around and saw people, engineers, early employees, who had helped build something extraordinary and owned none of it. So he gave them his own stock, millions of dollars of his personal shares, voluntarily, to people he didn't have to give anything. He called it the Woz Plan. December 12, 1980, Apple goes public. It was the largest IPO since Ford Motor Company in 1956. In a single trading day, Apple created more instant millionaires than any company in American history. Wozniak's shares were worth over $116 million. He was 30 years old. He sat in a boardroom staring at numbers that didn't feel real, and he felt nothing like what you'd expect. Then, on February 7th, 1981, everything stopped. A small plane taking off from an airfield in Santa Cruz, Wozniak at the controls, a stall on takeoff, a crash. He survived, but the impact erased days from his memory. His mind sealed off the trauma entirely, a condition doctors call post-traumatic amnesia. In a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, the man who was worth over $100 million, his first question when he woke up wasn't about Apple. It wasn't about his shares. He asked when he could go back to flying.
Invention opened the door. Control decided who walked through it.
He spent months recovering, and when he came back, something had changed. Not in him, in Apple. By 1983, Jobs was building the Macintosh, the future of personal computing, the project that would define the decade. Wozniak was not on the team, not because he wasn't capable, because Jobs had decided the Apple II, Wozniak's machine, the one generating nearly all of Apple's revenue, was history. The engineers working on it were treated as second-class citizens inside their own company. Their work was legacy, something to be replaced, not improved. Wozniak's annual salary at this point? $21,600. It had not changed in years. The machine he built was keeping Apple alive. The man who built it was making less than a starting teacher. So Wozniak did something no one saw coming. He spent $12 million of his own money organizing rock concerts. The US Festival, 1982 and 1983. Van Halen, David Bowie, The Police, Motley Crue. 400,000 people in the California desert. Wozniak paid for all of it. He lost almost every cent. It wasn't a mistake. It was a man trying to find a reason to get up in the morning. January 24th, 1984. Steve Jobs stood alone on a stage in a dark auditorium and introduced the Macintosh to the world. Wozniak watched from the audience. February 6th, 1985. Steve Wozniak resigned from Apple. He didn't make demands, didn't negotiate, didn't fight. He walked down a long corridor, through a door marked Exit, and into the California light. The desk he left behind was empty, chair pushed in, nothing remaining, as if he had simply never been there. Apple's stock began to fall, a boardroom full of nervous executives staring at charts pointing downward. By September of that same year, the board forced Jobs out too. Both men who had started everything in a garage in Los Altos, with a soldering iron and 30 days and nothing to lose, were gone. What came next is history that everyone knows. Apple collapsed, then came back. The iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, the most valuable company ever to exist, $3.3 trillion, built on a foundation laid in a garage by a man in a plaid shirt who just wanted to solve a problem. The last time Wozniak and Jobs were in the same room together was sometime in the early 2000s. They stood close, said little, and looked in different directions. $3.3 trillion. His name is on the founding documents. It is not on a single building. Today, Steve Wozniak teaches primary school children about technology, not because he has to, because he wants to. He shows up in his plaid shirt with his quiet enthusiasm and explains computers to kids who have never heard the name Apple I. He's done it for years. He never stopped. Apple Park stands in Cupertino, 175 acres of glass and steel and corporate mythology. Wozniak's name is not on any of it. The Apple I circuit board, the one he built by hand, alone, at 25 years old, in a garage that smelled of solder and ambition, sits behind glass in the Smithsonian Institution, lit by a single spotlight. He built the thing that started it all, never asked for the credit, never chased the money, never fought for what was his. People will spend the rest of their lives debating whether Jobs was a genius or a thief. But here's the question nobody asks. What if Wozniak knew exactly what he was doing and chose it anyway? What if the man who walked away from everything was the only one in that garage who understood what any of it was really worth? If this story hit you differently than you expected, subscribe, because the stories we tell here are never what you think they are. Next, a company worth $50 billion and the man who sold his share for $800. That story is already in production.
Every legend has a name people remember. But behind every legend, there is someone the world forgets. Wozniak built the machine, others built the legacy, and now you know the part they didn't tell you.